Hey, Forge fans, Anthony Urcioli with you. It's the Forge Audio Network. This is the Match in Review, Forge FC, the opener of the Canadian Championship Tournament. 3-0 victory over FC Laval at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And, the game, the way it started out, Laval had a couple of chances. Now, coming into this, we wondered, right? Where was Forge going to be mentally coming off an emotional match against Cavalry? They have another league match coming up the following Saturday, and this was kind of sandwiched in the middle, this Canadian Championship tie against the club with really nothing to lose. You know they're going to sit back and defend, rely on the counter. There was an equalizer. I don't know what... Listen, last time I was at this stadium, I couldn't stop sweating. It was so hot. There were water breaks for the players. I'm walking up to the stadium on a Tuesday night, and I'm getting hit in the face with ice pellets. I don't know what's happening, but the wind, the weird kind of weather conditions may have played into Forge's favor a little bit, just because they couldn't get caught on that counter because the ball just wasn't cutting through the air. And for a club like Forge that relies on more of a ground game and more on ball movement, it worked into their favor even more so. Laval just could not they couldn't get the counter going. They did have some opportunities early. They just, that little extra touch just wasn't there. The finish wasn't there. So end of the day, it's Forge FC with a 3-0 win. They will play the winner of the other Canadian Championship draw, which is Halifax and Ottawa, two CPL clubs, and Forge will meet one of those two in the second round of the Canadian Championship. All right. Noah Jensen picking up exactly where he left off in the opening match against Cavalry in this Canadian Championship draw. He opened the scoring in the 36th minute, a goal that was very similar to the one he scored against Cavalry. It was a loose ball. He's in the right spot. He knows his IQ, the way he reads the field, he just always seems to be in the right position. And because of that, he gets opportunities at the goal that other players might not get because they're just not anticipating the way Noah Jensen is, the way he sees the game. Perfect spot, right time, opens the scoring for Forge FC. Woobens Pacius with the assist. That was in the 36th minute. So Forge went into halftime with the lead. Noah Jensen, again, doubles that lead, 55th minute. This one, it was deflected, but it was a rocket, and it was labeled. So he gets credit for the goal. His second of the match, his third in the last, 3 days or so. So Noah Jensen delivering again, 55th minute, his second goal of the match. And then Woobens Pacius 2 minutes later on a penalty. We wondered, those of us watching the match, whether Jensen would get the opportunity at the PK to complete the hat trick, but it's very important to this club that its goal scorers, its strikers, get as many looks, as many opportunities to fill up the score sheet as possible. We saw it from Jordan Hamilton in the match against Cavalry. He got the nod on the PK and he delivered, and that was a clinical finish. Pacius, this had clinical written all over it. No mistake. Head down, knew exactly what he wanted to do. Practically celebrating before the ball went in. He knew he had it, and it was Pacius putting Forge up 3-0. Things got a little chippy in the sense that Laval just didn't really make any attempts at playing the ball multiple times, and as a result, were handed a few yellow cards in the second half, but Forge FC making the most of their bench in a match like this. Jordan Hamilton came on. He replaced Taron Campbell. Kwesi Poku came on to replace Chouanière, and Sissoko came on to replace Borges. So the lineup, and that wasn't it, by the way. So Ashton Morgan eventually came off in the 76th minute. It was Malik Abwabi-Belawu taking his spot, and then Noah Jensen gets a break, and it was Alessandro Hojab-Rapport that came in. Big news, though, in this one. Alex Hashinotti-Janssen, the reigning defender of the year. He played the first match of the season as a center back. In this one, though, back in the midfield where he's used to. It's his natural position. He's always happy to play. He's happy to play anywhere, but there's a little extra. Smiles a little wider when he gets to play in the midfield, but it just speaks to the depth of this squad. All right, let's bring in our analyst. Alex Gange-Rusick witnessed the match, and he joins us now to add some of his insight. Alex, it was a match where you wondered what Forge was going to look like on paper and what kind of lineup they were going to field, but all of the big names were in. He wasn't treating this, Bobby, as a match against a semi-pro club, as maybe it's an opportunity to give some guys some extra minutes, and he definitely used all of his subs. But were you surprised at the lineup he fielded?
No, not at all. I think something Forge mentioned earlier this week, that they really want to take the Canadian Championship seriously. I mean, they're saying that this is the last piece in the trophy cabinet. Things like that. Of course, the regular season trophy, of course, will be something they chase. But the Can Champ is a huge goal of theirs, so it's no surprise to see them go full guns a-blazing. I think this was a good test for Smear Notice in terms of just how he's going to be able to rotate his lineup. And it was just fascinating to see that he still did rotate a little bit. Guys like Taran Campbell and Wubens Pacius, who came off the bench on the weekend, started. Guys like Kwasi Poku get an opportunity off the bench. You see Garvin Matusala pop up, which was good to see. And there were little indications that, Bobby Smear Notice is rotating his squad. And I think it was just also him showing the depth that him and his staff have built for this season.
Yeah, it's not often a player, Alex Ashton-Yodi-Janssen, he plays center back a couple days ago. If you 72 hours later or whatever it is, he's playing midfield back where in his natural position, and a position that is, and we've talked about this, just stacked. I mean, the depth at midfield for Forge. So it's nice seeing Alex get back into the midfield, but I mean, Noah Jensen, we saw flashes of it in limited playing time relative to some of his other midfielders, but I mean, this is not many are surprised at the leap he's already taken 2 matches into this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a credit to Noah Jensen. Jensen's just showed a real maturity in his game. I think we saw the flashes of talent last year, what he was able to do on the ball, but now he's popping up in great areas. He's finishing. I think both goals were really well taken. The first one in particular was a top finish from a midfielder to wrap your foot over the ball the way he did. And I think we're just seeing the little details start to come together for Jensen. I think you can tell that he's been learning from the Beckers, the Sissokos, the Hojiabapurs, and it's super exciting to see what his ceiling is, because, yeah, when everyone's healthy, he might be the 4th, 5th best option on paper, but A, that will change if he keeps this up, and B, that's good depth if that's the case.
I mean, look, I don't know, the players aren't going to complain, coaches aren't going to complain, but let's just say the weather here, it was scorching hot over the weekend. There was water breaks. Tonight, I was getting hit with ice pellets on the way to the stadium. I think it was around 4 degrees. That's a drastic jump in temperature. And I guess it's very Canadian Premier League to have those kind of drastic shifts. But for a club that played, the training camp started February, so they were playing in the winter. Then they went to Costa Rica. So I guess they're used to those extreme shifts. But how does that impact a match when I know Forge doesn't do a ton through the air? They like a ball possession game. They like to make their runs and to, play it on the ground if they can. But how does that impact the game when you show up to work and you're getting hit with ice pellets before a match?
Yeah, and it's something to consider. I mean, I think the big thing certainly is fitness this early on in the season, especially you play, you go on training camp, it's warmer, you come back, it's a bit colder, then you get the sun and you think it's summer, and then you get the cold. I think the big thing you see is just, injury risk. It's different ball game warming up when it's minus 20 degrees. You really have to be diligent with your steps, but maybe when it's a little hotter, you can get away with a little more. Just your muscles get looser naturally. Of course, you have to then watch out for cramps. So it's, there's no the perfect weather is probably 10, 11, 15 degrees, which you usually get in the fall. But as for Forge, I mean, in terms of the playing style, I think it is an advantage. I think Laval, one thing that you could really tell is that they wanted to be a bit more direct, and there were times where they'd throw these long balls that would get stuck in the air, and Forge weren't really falling into that trap. I think we've seen them play in this sort of circumstances before, so it's definitely something that's a bit of an advantage. I don't think it's going to be one that's incremental, but it's something, little things where teams might be forced into playing a certain way, and Forge, they know the elements, they're comfortable with it, and that's just the beauty of a home field advantage, and knowing that Tim Hortons Field is a bit of a wind tunnel in certain aspects, so that when it's windy, you feel it, as you did on at least over the broadcast. I'm sure you can confirm in the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Forge will play the winner of Atletico and Halifax in their Canadian Championship tie. It's unfortunate because we are going to see, I guess, two CPL clubs out within the first couple of rounds. But realistically, for a CPL club to win this tournament, and Forge has come close. They were, a PK away from getting there. The format was obviously a little bit different, but just realistically, when you saw the draw and you saw just how many CPL clubs would be participating, realistically, did you think there was a chance that a CPL club could take this tournament?
I mean, it's something where it feels like we're going to be closer than ever. I think it's something where, yeah, you look and I think your Vancouvers and certainly your Torontos look to be the favorites and, never can count Montreal out. But Forge is one of those teams that feels like they can make some noise. The nice thing is they can kind of ease their way in this competition. They get the semi-pro team this week. They get CPL next time out. And say if they do win that, then they, face an MLS side. So at least there they can get up to speed. And they've historically done relatively well against MLS sides. Last year, a side where, they went to Montreal and Montreal was just, really hungry and it kind of kickstarted their excellent season. So it's just bad timing on that. So yeah, I think it's one where there's certainly a chance. I think given Forge's depth, that's probably the big one because they're going to be able to keep focus on CPL, keep focus on Canadian Championship, and maybe don't get their resources or attentions too stretched one way or the other. So why not? I mean, ideally, if they had a draw like Pacifics or Calvary's, it's all it's something where you'd have an immense amount of confidence, but it's still one where you'd fancy their chances at least going into a Toronto or Montreal game, and then from there, if you make a final, it feels like anything could be up in the air.
And this tournament, to be a CPL club to win this tournament would be an honor in itself. But that extra path to the Champions League, and Forge has made no mistake. I mean, that is what they have their sights set on. And I would imagine it plays into it. I mean, that's an extra. That's not just an extra little thing tacked on. That's a huge, huge reward at the end of this tournament.
Yeah, and I think that's why teams take it so seriously, especially the MLS teams. It's one of those where for the CPL teams, you can know that for the most part, you're not getting MLS teams at the worst because they know the value of a Champions League spot. I think you saw it last year with Vancouver. They hadn't been in a while, and every game, no matter if it was Valor, York, Calvary, and then TFC in the final, every game was an A team. Every game meant a lot, and I think that's huge for CPL teams because at least they're going out there and they know they're getting their best, and it also incentivizes them to go out there and push. And I think that those Champions League spots are just huge because the exposure, the level of competition, just getting on those sorts of stages are big for some of these young Canadian players, and it's certainly something that teams consider. But it is also nice that starting this year, the CPL teams do get that added bonus in the league play, so they're not going Canadian Championship or bust just to get those spots, but certainly an incentive.
Yeah, absolutely. You have your ear to the ground with the sport in this country. This league's reputation, I'd imagine it's grown quite a bit. Even just, domestically, the league saw its biggest attendance numbers, at least compared to the year before, in that first week of the season that we just had. So it's gaining some traction. What about internationally? Is the CPL, are you noticing a pretty consistent rise in at least the reputation and the notoriety of this league?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of little things that are helping. I mean, we look at little things such as the league does a great job of tracking stats and, broadcasting games. Those sorts of little things might be taken for granted. But one thing I read a lot is I think some scouts, for example, they love to learn more about certain leagues and there's just no footage. There's no data.
Interesting.
And it's nice to know that, say, with the CPL, we'll use a Forge example. Say Noah Jensen's having a hot start to the season. He keeps this up. Scouts overseas can look at a team like Forge, like, oh, this Noah Jensen. Okay, I can watch all this footage on him. Oh, I have all this advanced data on him without even ever stepping foot in the country. And I think little details like that is why you see moves like a Victor Latourie, from Calvary go over to Scottish League, or Dominic Zator on York make that jump up to Poland, and then those little jumps like that. So I think it's something where, look, there's still a long way to go in terms of getting that overall reputation. I think it's going to take a while for when people see Canada automatically think, oh, there's a Canadian Premier League there. You know, the same way you look at England and France and even the US with MLS. You know, of course they've been around for a lot less than some of those leagues. So I think there's a lot of work to do in terms of reputation. That's going to take doing well in Champions League. That's going to take continually exporting players. But there are little details that help. Also, just consistent branding of the league. Little details like that will help it grow internationally, because people forget the importance of some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lights started dimming around me, so I think that's my cue to. I think it's my curtain call. But are you out west, by the way?
I am for this one.
I can see the sunshine. I'm a little bit jealous right now. Complain. So no, enjoy that sun, and I'm positive we'll talk to you again.
Awesome, pleasure as always, Anthony.
All right, thank you. Your final, once again, from Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, the opener of the Canadian Championship, Forge FC with a 3-0 win over FC Laval. They will meet the winner of Ottawa, Halifax in that tie. And then Forge back at it, quick turnaround. It'll be their third match in a span of 8 days. The next one happens on Saturday against Halifax. Might be a preview of the second round of the Canadian Championship. We'll see. But Forge hosting Halifax on Saturday at 4 o'clock at Tim Hortons Field. ForgeFC.ca/tickets to get yours. All right, I'll be there. We'll see you there.